What? A dirty rural factory? Not even worth discussing.
Are you making fun of us?
Seeing the two of them laughing and looking at each other, I was dumbfounded. Just because they're our major corporate client doesn't mean they can act so arrogantly. My son, who was equally surprised, glared at them with anger.
Can't you show us a little more respect? You outdated, rundown factories.
I couldn't hold back anymore at Samuel's words. At that moment,
Get lost, Brad. The deal is off.
I felt an overwhelming presence behind me. It was time for my father to step in and discipline these cocky young men. I never imagined at that moment what would happen to the two smirking clients. My name is Kenneth Brown, 53 years old. I work at my family's Brown manufacturing factory. My father is a skilled worker who, at 71, still serves as the active factory manager. However, due to his age, he now mostly advises the workers and watches over the employees. I'm in my 50s and still actively working, so I'm effectively the factory manager. My son, Nathan, after graduating from college, uses what he learned to bring various jobs to the factory. My mother and wife quietly support my father and me, allowing me to enthusiastically tackle my work every day. Each of us doing our best every day makes for enjoyable and meaningful times. Even though it's a rural factory, we've achieved respectable results and even deal with major corporations. So I never thought the factory was in danger of shutting down. However, an unexpected worst-case scenario awaited me. One day, Nathan and I were working with a bit of nervousness. Today, representatives from the Tanner Group, one of our major clients, were coming to negotiate a deal for a new product at our factory. The Tanner Group is a well-known company, ranking #1 in the industry. Most of the parts we make are delivered to the Tanner Group, making them a key client for us. At 11 a.m., the scheduled time, a luxury car stopped in front of the factory.
They're here. I'll go check it out.
Nathan wiped his sweat and headed towards the luxury car. The man who got out was wearing an expensive suit and looked down at the factory with disdain.
Do you know how much time it took to bring me all the way here?
When the man said that, another man in the driver's seat reacted to his words.
Samuel, this is Brown Manufacturing Factory, our business partner. We're scheduled to having a business meeting here today.
The man addressing Samuel was Eddie, who I dealt with half a year ago on a different product. He always belittled our factory, showing no manners or morals. Samuel and Eddie lazily walked into the factory, and Nathan greeted them with a smile. However, as soon as they entered, they looked around with disgust and said something outrageous.
Are we seriously doing business with parts made in a place like this? All these parts are tarnishing our company's name.
Samuel picked up a half-made part nearby and slammed it to the floor. The sudden action caused the workers to stop what they were doing and stare in shock. Eddie, while nervous about Samuel's behavior, watched with a smirk. Samuel, noticing me, walked over with a superior attitude.
Are you the head of this rundown factory? Our company is super famous, so stop making parts in such a filthy place.
I picked up the dropped part, looked Samuel straight in the eye, and replied, "This part has been refined multiple times and is close to perfection. Without this part, your company's products can't be made, right?" Samuel laughed in disbelief at my words.
What? A dirty rural factory? Not even worth discussing.
Are you making fun of us?
Seeing the two of them laughing and looking at each other, I was dumbfounded. Just because they're our major corporate client doesn't mean they can act so arrogantly. After greeting Samuel and Eddie, Nathan, who had been listening while doing other tasks, couldn't help but stop and glare at them.
Can't you show us a little more respect? You outdated, rundown factories.
I couldn't hold back anymore at Samuel's words. At that moment,
Get lost, Brad. The deal is off.
I felt an overwhelming presence behind me. When I turned around, there stood my father with a serious expression. He marched over to the two men and glared sharply at them.
You just insulted and looked down on all our employees. We don't need to do business with a company like yours.
Samuel laughed mockingly at my father's words, but Eddie, standing next to him, hastily offered some documents.
Please wait. If the deal falls through, we won't be able to release our next new product.
Samuel seemed puzzled by Eddie's sudden panic, not understanding what was happening. Seeing Eddie desperately apologizing, Samuel sneered. So I decided to explain the situation regarding our factory and the deal. This deal is about parts that can only be used in your company's new product. The part you just destroyed is essential for your production, isn't it? Hearing this, Samuel turned to Eddie with an alarmed expression and started shouting.
Eddie, why didn't you tell me about this? I've been disrespectful to an important business partner.
I couldn't help but think that a respectful attitude should be a given in any deal, but I waited for Eddie's response. Eddie, looking exasperated, retorted to Samuel.
I've told you multiple times, Samuel, but you kept bad-mouthing the factory all the time.
Eddie acted as if he was on our side, trying to put all the blame on Samuel. However, I wasn't going to let Eddie's behavior slide. Eddie, you've also been mocking us in previous dealings. Acting like you're on our side now is just terrible. Hearing the unexpected truth, Eddie clicked his tongue and looked down. My father, still glaring at Samuel and Eddie, spoke up.
Not only today, but you've treated us unforgivably in past meetings as well. This deal and all previous ones are now void.
Hearing this, Eddie quickly got down on his knees.
I'm very sorry. Without the parts made by your factory, we can't maintain our position as the industry's #1.
While apologizing, Eddie glanced at Samuel. However, Samuel let out a big sigh and made things worse by saying something outrageous.
Honestly, a factory that acts so high and mighty over mere parts is also pretty strange. Without us, this place would go under.
Samuel's words sent a chill through the factory. My father's face turned bright red as he yelled at Samuel and Eddie.
If that's how you feel, leave immediately. Never set foot in this factory again.
Overwhelmed by my father's fury, the two men quickly fled the factory. Dad, thank you for helping us out. When I thanked my father, he returned to his usual gentle smile. My father rarely gets angry and is well liked for his mild temperament. Those two must have a special talent for making him that angry.
Just because they're from a big company doesn't mean they can say whatever they want. And our factory won't go under just because we lose the Tanner Group.
As my father said, there was a different truth behind Samuel's dismissive words. Currently, our factory only produces products for the Tanner Group. However, other companies have long been requesting our products as well. Because the Tanner Group kept placing large orders, we were unable to do business with other companies. Now, we can finally cancel the contract with the Tanner Group and start dealing with other companies. I discussed with Nathan about sending out documents for future contracts. 10 days later, while working as usual, I received a call from the Tanner Group. It was Samuel, the same guy who had angered my father. "What do you want? We canceled all contracts with you, remember?" Samuel, almost in tears, apologized to me.
I'm terribly sorry for my and Eddie's inappropriate behavior the other day. We can't launch our new product without the parts you made.
Even with this plea, there's no way I'd continue working with a company that treated our parts like that. As I remained silent in frustration, Samuel tried to evoke sympathy.
There are people waiting for our products. Plus, if this incident gets out, both Eddie and I are in big trouble.
Honestly, I don't care what happens to them. I've had enough of them talking down on our cherished factory. After letting Samuel say all he wanted, I responded, "I understand what you're saying, but we've already informed your higher-ups about your behavior. You might want to prepare for a discussion with them." Samuel, not expecting us to have already contacted his superiors, sounded shocked. He didn't think we'd go over his head. If we were going to cancel the contract, it was only right to explain the reasons to his superiors.
What the hell? You country bumpkins sure are quick with this stuff.
As soon as Samuel realized we were serious, his tone turned nasty. Maybe this was his true nature. I found it odd how his emotions shifted from anger to apology. "You can call us country folk or whatever you like, but soon you won't be able to belittle us anymore." Samuel tried to retort, but I hung up on him.
"Dad, we got a call from a new potential client. Even without the Tanner Group, we're still busy."
Nathan, working on paperwork next to me, smiled happily. Even without the Tanner Group, plenty of companies want to work with us. Finally, it's time to show them what we can do. After canceling the contract, we secured several deals with other companies and focused on manufacturing parts. The new companies aren't as large, but they respect our ideals and needs, and we have a mutual respect. After finishing a negotiation with one of these new companies, we took a break and watched the local news. What we saw was shocking.
"Isn't this about the Tanner Group?"
Nathan, who was watching the news with me, pointed at the TV with a surprised look. On screen, Samuel and the CEO of the Tanner Group were apologizing deeply. It seemed the Tanner Group couldn't proceed with their new product and had to delay its release. Moreover, they were reported to have imposed unreasonable demands on other factories, leading to a strike. The company explained that all the trouble was caused by Samuel, the sales manager. The parts Samuel destroyed had required significant time and money to produce, putting a heavy burden on the factory. They must have begged for lower prices and quicker production.
Now they understand what happens when someone who doesn't care about the manufacturers comes to the negotiating table.
Seeing Samuel nearly in tears as reporters grilled him during the press conference, my father coldly said this and walked away. Given Samuel's attitude, he must have looked down on workers and acted arrogantly at other factories too. Thinking about this, I quietly watched the Tanner Group's apology press conference. A few weeks later, while discussing parts with my employees, Nathan came running up to me at full speed.
"Dad, Samuel and Eddie are here, and they're really angry. I can't handle them alone."
Nathan looked exhausted, likely from trying to deal with them. I asked an employee to take a message and quickly headed to the factory entrance. Standing there were Samuel and Eddie, both looking ready to explode with anger. "What do you want now? We don't do business with you anymore." When I dismissed them, Samuel's face turned red with rage.
Your factory workers spread rumors about us, didn't they? Because of that, we had a strike, and I had to go through that press conference.
With steam practically coming out of his ears, Samuel's words were explained further by Eddie.
Our next client heard about the incident from the factory manager at Brown Manufacturing, and that's why they went on strike.
Even if they said that, it wasn't fair for them to blame me. I was about to tell them I hadn't heard anything about this when I heard my father's voice from behind.
You're talking about Wilson Manufacturing, right?
My father walked slowly toward them. Remembering how he had fiercely reprimanded them last time, Samuel and Eddie looked a bit intimidated. Then my father revealed a shocking truth.
I'm the one who told them about your misbehavior. Instead of looking for a scapegoat, why don't you apologize to your next client?
Samuel looked ready to punch someone, but Eddie, overwhelmed by my father's presence, dragged him away from the factory. "Dad, why do you have connections with Wilson Manufacturing? Did you work with them in the past?" Wilson Manufacturing is one of the most famous factories in the country. I wondered how our factory had any connection with them. When I asked, my father told me a story from the past. The current manager at Wilson Manufacturing used to work at our factory as an employee. He learned a lot from my father and eventually started his own factory. That factory grew famous and now receives orders from overseas companies.
I couldn't let my precious apprentice's factory get ruined by those two. So I warned Wilson Manufacturing about Samuel and Eddie.
My father wanted to reduce the number of companies that would suffer from Samuel and Eddie's behavior. Seeing this, I felt a strong desire to show that our factory was more needed than the Tanner Group. Samuel and Eddie still look down on us. Just watch what we can do. Seeing my determination, my father looked pleased. 2 months later, after numerous discussions with our clients, we succeeded in creating a new product.
This can beat the Tanner Group's product. We did it, Dad.
Nathan, who had worked tirelessly, looked at the parts with great joy. Our clients have thanked us many times. Maybe now they'll regret underestimating us. We exchanged looks that said we were getting our revenge. As expected, the product we developed with our new clients quickly became a hit, and before we knew it, we had surpassed the sales of the Tanner Group.
Even in my prime, we never sold this well. My son and grandson are amazing. Truly wonderful.
My father, looking at the documents, was clearly overjoyed. But our celebration was short-lived as we received another call from them. This time, it was Eddie, and his previously arrogant demeanor was nowhere to be found. He spoke to us with a very humble tone.
It seems our product sales have been surpassed by yours. Would you be willing to provide your excellent technology to us again?
It's terrifying how persistent they are despite our contract cancellation. Even if they're humble now, they might revert to their old ways once we resume business. I listened to Eddie's tempting offers of large sums of money and bad-mouthing our current clients with disbelief. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and decided to respond. We're not foolish enough to work again with a company that looked down on us. You keep calling and visiting. Are you that desperate after our contract fell through? We're not going to help you. Eddie, realizing I had hit the nail on the head, started to reveal the truth.
The truth is, since our contract with you was canceled, other factories have stopped production for us too.
Apparently, when the other factories heard about our canceled contract, They also reached their limit and started ending their deals.
And all the factories that canceled were ones where Samuel had been in charge of. They're all critical parts, and now production is falling behind.
Eddie's voice trembled, almost crying, and I couldn't help but laugh. That's entirely your own doing. Why are you acting like a victim? Eddie, maybe thinking he'd get some sympathy, responded in a shaky voice. I decided to drive the point home. You've been acting like you're frustrated with Samuel, but you were looking down on us from the beginning, weren't you? Eddie remained silent, so I continued. Apologizing now is too late. Reflect on your behavior and do better in your next business. Eddie, sniffling, tried to plead.
Samuel has been demoted because of you. Don't you care about helping someone who's sad and shocked?
Given Samuel's past behavior, it was no surprise he eventually faced consequences. I've never heard of a deal where I have to consider the rank of the client's employees. Do you realize how self-centered you sound? I coldly replied, and Eddie fell completely silent. As I was about to end the call, I heard another voice.
Please give us another chance. We'll never behave like that again.
It was Samuel, pleading from the other side of the line, having seen Eddie's despair.
Our company is on the brink of bankruptcy because we can't sell our other products. We've had a long relationship with your factory and made you famous.
The audacity of his words left me speechless. This person unconsciously always tried to place himself above others. As I remained silent, Samuel made a final plea.
As country folks, you should know picking a fight with a big company like the Tanner Group is a bad idea, right? You'll forgive us, won't you?
That sealed it for me. No matter how many times I say it, we're never doing business with you again. Any company that has employees who call us country folks and only see money isn't worth dealing with. Never contact us again, and if the Tanner Group collapses, it's entirely your fault. I said this and hung up before Samuel could respond. My father, sitting next to me, listened with a proud expression on his face. My father gently patted my shoulder after the call.
That was impressive. You protected the factory and its workers.
His words melted into my heart. A few weeks after that call, the Tanner Group's bankruptcy was reported on the news. The reasons cited were numerous client complaints, production delays due to strikes, and a dwindling customer base. 5 days after the bankruptcy announcement, the CEO, Samuel, and Eddie came to our factory. They finally expressed their gratitude for our past business and apologized for their behavior during the last deal.
It's my fault the company ended up like this. I'm truly sorry.
Samuel, looking completely devoid of dignity, was followed by Eddie, who also apologized.
We thought we could get away with anything because we were a big company. I'm really sorry.
The CEO even got down on his knees expressing apology, turning the factory entrance into a chaotic scene. We understand. Just leave now. My father and I coldly dismissed the three of them after their excuses. The next day, Nathan informed us of something. An employee from another factory exposed Samuel and Eddie's misconduct on social media. This led to their identities being publicly revealed online. People who had been insulted by Samuel even shared recorded conversations. The news kept covering the scandal, and reporters visited our factory several times. However, as the online uproar grew, the focus shifted to Samuel and Eddie.
Those two are in serious trouble. Their faces and recordings from business meetings are all over the internet.
According to Nathan, the backlash against them was intense, and their erratic behavior had already been a topic of concern before the bankruptcy. After the news frenzy died down, rumors spread that the Tanner Group's CEO was suing Samuel and Eddie for damages. A friend who worked at the Tanner Group until last year told me the CEO was furious, blaming Samuel for the bankruptcy. The CEO was determined to hold Samuel and Eddie accountable for tarnishing the reputation of a major company. Samuel and Eddie finally understood their mistakes, but desperately tried to avoid the CEO's claims. However, the responsibility for their failures was immense. Many employees lost their jobs due to their actions, and they had no one to support them.
They came to apologize to us, but it felt more like excuses. They need to face the consequences to truly reflect.
I nodded in agreement with Nathan. Having a big company title doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. We've learned that without respect and appreciation for the factories that produce your goods, you'll face serious consequences. The three who came to apologize spent a long time visiting all the factories they had dealings with. However, they found no sympathy anywhere, often facing loud reprimands or even physical confrontations. I believed they deserved it. Their actions during our business caused us immense stress and negativity. This whole ordeal was our complete victory and the beginning of their downfall. The backlash against Samuel and Eddie kept growing, leaving them with no place to go. Both were married with children, but it was rumored online that their families left them due to the scandal. Given that such personal details are being disclosed, it's likely that most people don't think highly of them. The compensation demanded by the company was reportedly $2 million each, which might be lenient for a big corporation. Even so, for the two whose faces were exposed online, finding a job would be nearly impossible. After his divorce, Samuel took a live-in temp job and even worked in our rural area. However, remembering how he loudly mocked this town at the station and looked down on the residents, no one welcomed him. Eventually, he disappeared, and now no one knows how he makes a living. Eddie, overwhelmed by the backlash, suffered a mental breakdown and is now working while receiving medical treatment. However, he frequently quits jobs and has been rumored to be defaulting on his compensation payments. Even now, when things have settled down, there are still people online who watch them for amusement. At first, I felt sorry for them, but considering their past behavior, I think this is a lenient outcome. Their actions were despicable, constantly looking down on others. They wouldn't understand until they experienced the same themselves. As the chaos subsided, we enjoyed a celebratory drink with our new business partners. The products once monopolized by the Tanner Group were now being produced by various companies, each showcasing their unique qualities. Our new partners, pleased with stable results, organized this celebration as a token of gratitude.
I'm really glad we have partners who respect each other. If we had kept dealing with them, it would have been a disaster by now.
Seeing my father happily drinking, I expressed my deep gratitude to him. Dad, thank you for standing up to them back then. From now on, Nathan and I will work together to protect this factory. My father smiled gently at my words, and Nathan nodded enthusiastically beside him. This whole ordeal has been a great opportunity for us to grow. Continuing relationships with large corporations isn't always the best thing. As a factory manager, my role is to collaborate with trustworthy partners to create excellent products. Even in my 50s, challenges keep arising. But I find that very fulfilling. I intend to continue working with everyone to further develop the factory my father built.